hi, folks. I'm chuckling because I'm sitting here thinking, now, what did my audience think of what I just did? I'm going to tell you what I think you thought, but I needed to do it anyway. You said, that's for the rich folks. That's not for me. Yep, it is. But guess what? What we're talking about today is where you invest your money, where the average person invests their money so that we can implement that strategy. So once we get through this, you may want to go back and watch that other segment because it will become significant for you. You're going to have greater opportunities coming out of this than you ever could imagine. So let's get into the details. Let's go to the first slide. I just want to remind you, this is a part of an 8-part series. It's not just about this financial reset. It's about understanding everything that made America great and how we're going to get it back and keep it. So this is what is going to determine if America comes through this, once again becomes the moral and economic leader of the world, and we have to keep it. And so if we're going to keep it, we got to understand everything they've done to us. So let's go down and we're going to dig into this, and you're going to see I'm going to change the tempo on you because I listened to what you guys wanted. I did this part 3 first because people were telling me in the comments, we want to know where to invest our money. And then I know that a lot of you said, well, we don't have the money to use that strategy. No, but you have the money to use the strategy we're going to talk about in a second. But now we're going to talk about the number 2 thing you want to know is when? When's it all coming? How much time do I have? So let's go to the next slide and we're going to break it down. I'm going to be coming at it from 2 different directions. So let's go and see what Kim Clement had to say. Kim Clement on June the 14th in 2014 said the following: a rendering is coming. In the fall, many will fall and many will rise from the dust. But remember, when these tremors and when these tumults, this tumultuous moments happen, I will make it so that the fall can do what? Can do its work where? In America. So what are we seeing? We're seeing whistleblowers coming out by the droves. We're finding out what Venezuela did to steal not only the election in the United States of America, but in 72 other nations. We're finding out what's happening with the drug cartels. We're basically finding out everything that he's telling us. It's coming true right as we speak. So what has to happen is all these whistleblowers come out. We find out about the election fraud. We find out that the governments in many nations around the world are our enemies, and everything changes. And basically the people who've been controlling us fall, and along with it, the financial system has a complete catastrophic reset. And guess what? It has to happen because he who controls money controls the world. So we have to take away the money from the global financial elite and put it in the hands of we the people. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. But let's go on down a little more on timing. So what else did Kim Clement have to say? He basically told us that we're going to be happy at Christmas time. He said a rendering is coming in the fall. Many will fall. What's going to happen now, according to Kim Clement, is we're going to be happy by Christmas time. What did he have to say on June the 14th, 2014? Winter will say, I will make them happy. I have chosen each season to manifest something. My will shall be done. So if Kim Clement's right, we're going to see catastrophic changes in the power structure of the entire world coming up now in the fall. And that ends on December the 21st. So we haven't got much time. And then we move into Christmas and we move into the first quarter of next year. So now let's layer another time frame on top of that. And this comes from history. This comes from understanding that every financial collapse we've ever had, the 29 collapse, the 08 collapse, the dot-com collapses, all of it, are all orchestrated by the global financial elite. They manipulate everything. They determine when that bubble is created, they determine when it's popped. And there's a pattern of about a year before every financial collapse, the global financial elite sell their assets. So what did I see here recently? I saw that the four of the wealthiest men in this country, Bezos from Amazon, etc., they basically divested of $50 billion of personal assets, getting ready for the collapse. So as their stocks fell, they can come back in and buy them for pennies on the dollar, as well as stocks in other companies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically what the global financial elite are doing. And there was something else, that there's insiders, not the men who own the companies, but insiders. And during that same time frame, they divested $164 billion. So what's the tell here? The tell is that when that happens, usually within a year on the outside, year and a half at the absolute most, the collapse occurs. So we're coming up right in conjunction with Kim Clement's prophecy. We should be looking at this reset to occur in late December into January, and no later than the end of the first quarter of 2026. So it's right here, folks. So it's time for you to get prepared. It's at the door. Let's go on down. And this next slide is something that I purposely put in this segment. So, and I'm putting up highly speculative. The only reason I have this up, that is indicating that's the Doge, that's the Shiba Inu meme. There's no logical reason why me or anybody else would ever invest in it. The only reason I have it up is because the prophets, many of them, are saying that God is not going to leave anybody out in this reset. So those who don't have enough money to buy the other items that we're going to be talking about, even in this segment, they may have a little money that they can put in Shiba, because it's for a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a penny. And what the prophets are saying is going to happen as the mass exodus occurs at some point from the dollar. There are going to be people that are going to be going into crypto. Remember, I warned you about all the cryptos except the ISO 2 2022 compliances. But Shiba Inu is kind of unique within that non-ISO 2 2022 compliancy category. And the prophets are all saying it's going to go up like a skyrocket and then drop immediately. So if you do decide to put some money in, pray on it, because there's no tangible reason why you should. And if you do invest, then you need to be able to set sell orders so that you can get out, because it's going to come down as fast as it goes up. And from what research I've done, or I should say my son has done for me, you need to be on the Kraken platform, because that's the only platform I'm aware of that's going to allow you to get out of Shiba Inu quick enough to be able to take the gains. So the global elite are going to drive it up. People in fear are going to drive it up, and then they're going to realize it has no real value and it's going to collapse. But for some of you, it's going to give you an opportunity to maybe make quite a bit of money, but pray on it, because there's no tangible reason to make this recommendation. Let's go on down, and I'm going to disagree with one of the biggest financial investors in the world with what you see on this slide. Ray Dalio is saying, he talks about where people should put their money in gold and silver, etc. And he's saying put 20% of your assets in China. I absolutely ardently disagree. We, starting with Carter, we Americans invested in high growth stocks at the urging of our financial advisors, people like Ray Dalio. And what we didn't realize is we gave China the money that it needed in order to grow to be the competitor that it is, and to be the pariah that it's come. So here's what I'm saying. Do not invest in China, in my opinion, at least not now. Here's why. I want you to think about what life would be like under China. They just recently said to the world, we own the vast majority of the rare earth production in the world. And if you don't side with us against America, we're going to cut you off. And the whole world suddenly realized they really are a pariah, because that would have shut down the entire global logistics chain. Now there's something else even worse that even fewer people know about. And that is that in this emerging world of cryptocurrencies, of digital currencies, there's absolute amazing things that can happen, but there's also dangers. And so in subsequent shows, we're going to be talking about that, and about artificial intelligence and human robotics and et cetera, and all the benefits that they can bring and all the dangers that they imply. But China is unique in terms of what they've already done. In my opinion, they've already set the foundation for the beast system. So if you live in China, you're in a nation that has more surveillance cameras than any other nation in the world. You're surveilled every place you go. And basically they have facial recognition on you. They know everything you do, every place you go. And if you're on the internet, you're tracked. And if you say or do anything against the best interest of the CCP, your credit score crashes. And it doesn't mean you can't borrow money. It's way more serious than that. It's basically the beast system. It means that you can't get on a high-speed train. You can't get on a plane. You may lose your job. You may lose your house. You may lose all of your friends. And it is truly the global financial elite trying to accelerate the process and take us into the book of Revelation, into the end times before time. And so basically, right now, the last thing you want to do is invest in China. First of all, because it's having a catastrophic collapse. And secondly, because you'll be helping our enemy to basically regain its financial footing at a time when America is fighting to get its financial footing. So what I'm going to say on China is wait. Wait until we're well into this collapse. Wait until we see, I hope, the people of China stand up, because the wealth that they thought that have accumulated over the last 70 years is gone. The middle class in China is decimated. And when that happens, the promise that the CCP made to the Chinese people is broken. They promised them after Tiananmen Square, if you will agree to live under communism, we will give you full employment and we will bring you up in a better standard of living. And then millions of people were raised into middle class status. Those people have now lost their homes. They've lost their savings. They've lost their jobs, and there's a lot of very, very unhappy people in China. And I've done whole shows on that, and we'll do some more in the future. But basically, if we see if the CCP falls, then China is going to become a very interesting place to put money, but not before. Moving over to the other side of the slide, I want you to understand part of what's happening with the geopolitical alignment in the world. If you can read all of those, I'm not quite sure if you can. Basically, what you've got is you've got a realignment where manufacturing is leaving China and going to very logical places around the world. So what the first thing you're looking at is something called nearshoring. That's nations that have cultural similarities to China, nations that are geographically in proximity to China. That means that all of the Asian nations that surround China are getting large portions of the trade as it leaves China. India, South Korea, Japan, you can read the list, on down it goes. And one of the ones that's on the revaluation list is Vietnam. And I think its relative growth is underestimated here because they're looking at it as having a currency that's very weak. But if you look at the dynamics of that nation, it's a strong, strong nation. So basically what you're looking at is if you are in a position to have international investments, as you will going further into this strategy, those are all nations that you should be investigating because they're near shore opportunities where trade is leaving China and coming to nations around them. And then the other one is another type of nearshoring, and that's Mexico, because you need to be geographically near the largest consumer market in the world. So that's Mexico. So all those nations are going to be benefiting from the loss of trade from China. But to sum up what I said, my opinion, we don't want to be feeding an enemy. So don't make any investments in China right now. But if we see that the CCP falls, I'm telling you, I've been doing my research. There are some amazing technologies coming out of China, and a friendly China that's no longer under the CCP simply becomes a competitor, and America and the United States will lead the world in technology going into the next decade. So let's go on down to the next slide. And we're going to look at your personal portfolio. We're breaking it down. And when we get to the last couple of slides, that's where you really, really need to pay attention, because that's where I'll bring everything home and show you what you need to do immediately, where you need to put your money so that you can basically grow it, so that you can make additional investments. So for those who have some money right now, here's the recommendation. Customize your portfolio. Don't try to catch the bottom of the market. So if the stock market, for example, collapses or the real estate market collapses, buy into it. As it continues to drop, buy more. Continues to drop, buy more. But remember, pay cash. Spread your risk between multiple asset classes. Liquidate assets denominated in dollars. Move in and out of semi-liquid assets. And there I would say silver and currencies. And have a plan to stay with it. As everything changes, stay with your plan. Don't get scared because things are dropping. Understand that the further they drop, the better the opportunities are for you. Do your own research. Don't take anything that I've said as the gospel. Go and do your own research. But I'm telling you, if you stop and think about what I've said, it's all logical, it's all historical, it's all biblical, and I'll stand on it. I believe that it's absolutely correct. Now, the next couple of slides, this is where you want to pay attention, folks. This is where the people who don't have much money and the people in the middle class are going to want to put their money in order to multiply it. So let's go to the next slide and we'll break it down. It's very simple. These are baseline investments that will give you optimal potential and protection in the coming months. So I'm going to tell you something biblically. I've been on this walk since 1968, and ever since I had my near-death experience, God comes to me at various times and gives me a message. And 3.5 years ago, he came to me and said, "You've asked me for seed to put in the ground for the financial reset." He said, "No man in the history of the world has ever had the opportunity to invest in what was going to become the world's reserve currency." So I started buying XRP at 30 cents. What he told me was a two-part message. He said, first, go find out what crypto is. I didn't even know what it was. I'm in my late 70s. And then after I did that research, did what he told me to do, he came back, and that's when he gave me the message that said that XRP was going to be the world's reserve currency, and I would have an opportunity to invest in it. Think about what's going to happen as this financial collapse happens, as the currencies of the world become devalued, as governments of the world become destabilized. What happens in a bubble every single solitary time, if you look at history, the credit dries up, and that means markets dry up. That means that just takes you deep into a depression cycle. But we have an ace in the hole this time. We have the ability to have liquidity to keep the markets running, and that liquidity is spelled XRP. So for those of you who want to invest in something that is going to be very, very wealthy, generational wealth, my recommendation is XRP. But here's the thing I will tell you about it. It's going to go up and up and up in plateaus as more and more, as more time passes and it's implemented, it'll go up like a staircase. More implementation, it goes up again. More implementation, it goes up again. But for those who have the ability, if you hold it, it will make generational wealth for you. So that takes us down to the second part of the investment strategy for the average person. If you have some money to invest in gold, go ahead and invest. But here's my comment. At nearly $5,000, and with Trump saying gold's going to go to 20, you can 3x it, no problem. But if you look at silver as being the quintessential metal for the restoration of America and the world, for America rebuilding its manufacturing prowess, for it being a metal that's in shortages, that basically is a strategic necessity right now. In my opinion, the better play is vastly in silver, and silver is going to be fluctuating up and down depending on supply and demand, meaning that it's semi-liquid. So for those of you that have the money to go into silver, which is a lot less costly to go into, I think you're going to see silver. My son and I talked about it, and he invested a bundle in silver back when it was $20. I think it could go to $300 or more. And so that's going to be for those who invest in silver. It's still not too late. The upside for silver is much greater, in my opinion, than the upside for gold. And then the little sister for silver is copper, because if we have a shortage of silver, the default metal becomes copper. So basically, I think you can go into silver, into copper, protect your assets, and be able to make some nice profits that you can liquidate and then take into other investment categories. So let's go on down. The global currency reset. This is something I absolutely believe in. I believe that Iraq is poised to have the dinar reset. I believe that Vietnam is poised to have the dong reset. And here's what that is. That becomes your opportunity to have a windfall, a very immediate windfall. When it resets, you might become a millionaire overnight, and then the whole game changes. You've got some XRP for a long-term hold. You've got some gold or some silver or some copper that gives you a place to store your wealth. to protect it as the collapse comes. And then especially if you're in silver or copper, you can liquidate that and move into other things. But where you get the fastest increase in your assets is if and when, and I believe it's right on the doorstep, if the dong and the dinar revalue, we could be looking at multiple millionaires. Now all of a sudden you have what? The world is your oyster. You can go and invest internationally. You can buy real estate. You can buy stocks because you might overnight be a millionaire. You might make it in silver. You might make it in copper. But the fastest, most immediate thing on the table, in my opinion, is those two currencies, is the dong and the dinar. And then if you miss those, and now you see that there really was a reset, then you need to be thinking about investing in the Bolivar and in the Zim. So that's my strategy for those people who don't have a lot of money and are looking for a very rapid opportunity to become wealthy so they can have a more diverse investment portfolio and they can get out and play with the big boys. So let's go on down to the next slide. And now we get into housing. And give me just 1 second while my computer does what I want it to do. Now, this is something I know a lot about, and I'll be doing some shows just on this. But now, if you've got some money in your pocket, now you can play in these two markets. But in real estate, I say what I said before. You don't want to buy and have a leverage to buy. You want to basically be able to pay cash. Here's what's going to happen. Those houses that I talked about yesterday that went from $200,000 to $420,000 wasn't because the houses were more valuable. It's because the dollar was less valuable. So as we go back on a gold-backed system and on a commodity-backed system based by a whole bucket of different commodities, we're going to go back to the housing prices that existed somewhere between the end of World War II and 1970 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And what does that mean? Let me give you a personal example. I bought my first house in 1970. That's why I chose that date. And it was a 10-room, all brick duplex. How much you think I paid? All brick, 10 rooms, $17,500. I sold that property many, many, many years ago for $110,000. So what's going to happen is the value of the dollar is going to go back to where it's worth $1. We just got out of the penny. And what does that do? That basically says that everything you buy is subject to a 4%, 5% inflation rate because they're going to round up because the penny's gone. And what did they do back in 64? They took the silver out of the coins, right? They debased the metal, just like every other nation has always done. So basically, going back to the houses, I think you're going to see that $420,000 house, maybe $40 or $50 or $60,000 once this residential real estate market has equilibrated, and once we're back onto a economy where the dollar is worth $1. So folks, just wait, pick your time, and if you have the money to now go in because you took the advice on the last slide, you may be able to go into real estate. Maybe you'll buy the first home you've ever owned, but basically just bide your time. This is not something you do immediately. Let the market find its own balance point. And then the same thing goes with stocks. You say, I don't have the money to invest in stocks. No, but if you do the things that were in that last slide, you might find out that in a 24-hour period, you might have. And now you can go back and look at what we talked about yesterday, and you can set an investment strategy for some of the best stocks in the world that have maybe declined by 30, 40, 50, 60%, and you'll have wealth. You'll be able to grow. So to go back and to summarize basically what I'm talking about, I'll review here, and then we just got one more slide. Basically, if you are in the middle class, or if you don't have much money at all, for those who have almost nothing, investigate whether the Lord tells you to invest in Shiba Inu. For those who have more money, then look at the currencies, look at basically investing in the dinar and the dong, because I really believe they're ready to pop. And then if you want to go into the metals, then I recommend silver, and copper, because they're going to be absolutely essential to the restabilization and regrowth of America, to bringing manufacturing back to the United States of America. So if you're invested in those three areas, you're going to have an opportunity to grow your wealth exponentially, then allowing you to go into real estate, to go into stocks, to go into international investing. So what I've tried to do is give you the big picture for all the different asset classes all around the world, and then come back to what you do as your starting point. The journey of 10,000 miles starts with one step. Invest in silver, and invest in copper, invest in the currencies, and set and wait until they pop. And when they do, then your investment opportunities are going to be much, much broader. And I want to close with this next slide and tell you why, again, from another perspective, you do not need to be afraid. Only America is in the position to lead the world. No, we're not going to be the sole leader. Like I said, China is going to be a world power. Russia is going to be a world power. But we're going to be, I still think, the largest, biggest, most powerful nation in the world. And here it is. Nobody in their right mind wants to live in a world ruled by China, or for that matter, even Russia. America is unique. America is God's nation. America is the nation that God led, that God used to send Christianity around the world. And it's a nation he's going to use again to harvest the souls that he's coming after right now, the 2 million man harvest. So here's what makes America unique, and why you don't need to be worried, and why you should be very grateful if you live in America. It's a free society. The people around the world trust America more than any other nation. Yes, we've done some bad things, but that's because we were controlled by the global financial elite. Once we have this financial collapse, take away money from the wealth, from the people who control us, from the global financial elite. Remember, he controls money, controls the world. They buy power and influence in every strata of society. Once we take that control away, we can change the world. We can get rid of corrupt bankers, corrupt CEOs, corrupt politicians. We can write new laws. We can change everything. And moving on down, for why America is the promised nation, it's diverse, abundance in natural resources, and also agreements around the world that Trump is now signing with other nations for natural resources, because they're all coming to the table because they understand they don't want to be under China. They don't want to be under Russia. So we're negotiating a pipeline with Canada for oil. We're negotiating a rare earth deal, a very important one in Australia. We're negotiating mineral rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Leadership in manufacturing and trade. Remember, we've been gutted, but we're still number 2. And we're going to be, in a very short while, give it 3 to 5 years, we're going to be number 1. We're going to go right back to where we were. Now, we won't control everything the way we did, but we'll still be the number 1 largest manufacturer in the world, which we're not right now. And we're going to, we have energy and food independence. No nation can be the leader of the world, can be a superpower, if they don't have abundant energy and food. We're energy independent right now, and we are the food basket for 100 nations around the world. God blessed America in many ways. In our geography, we're far away from all the wars that have been fought. We have an abundance of natural resources that has made America great and will continue to make America great. And we have the perfect demographics. If you look at Japan, the reason for the reverse carry trade is because of the fact that for couple of decades, they've had the oldest population in the world. And that is now something that's coming to the doorstep of China as a result of their one-child policy. Their society has aged, and they don't have people to replace them. They're set over the next decade to reduce their population by almost 50%. So we have a fairly young population in America, and we also have the technology that we're going to be able to take advantage of in order to build those factories that are going to be much more efficient than we have in the past, having massive increases in productivity. And no nation has ever really ruled the world unless it had a unifying language. And if you look at India, a lot of people say India is going to be great. They got 27 dialects. That's a bit of a problem. And they've got a huge lower class that's never been able to move up to middle class status. America is officially the language of the world. And we have a strong military that's capable of supporting us and keeping us in our position of power. So basically, America is going to come through this, and Donald Trump is going to deliver on making America great again, making America greater than ever. And here's what America is going to do. It's going to do the same thing it did following the Civil War when we were the inventors of the Industrial Revolution. We shared that railroad technology with the rest of the world. We shared the assembly line with the rest of the world, the automobile, the telephone, and the other myriad of things that we invented. And we now have access to almost 6,000 patents, and we have a roughly $20 billion coming in to build factories. America shared that technology with the world. It didn't hoard like the global financial elite. It didn't suppress. It's going to share that technology with the world, and the world is going to embrace America. We're God's chosen nation, and we're going to do what? Heal ourselves financially. And once we get ourselves in the right footing, we're going to be able to then reach out and help all the rest of the world and do exactly what Trump said: financial parity for the entire world and peace for the entire world. Look at the peace agreements that this man has negotiated already. He has been put in this position because he's God's chosen. He's Cyrus to build the wall of protection around America. He's David to basically make us a great nation. And when David passed away, who succeeded him? His son. And who was he? He was the Midas, the man with the golden touch, the wealthiest man in the entire world. So bottom line, folks, America is God's chosen nation. You don't need to be afraid. And if you invest in those simple things, the silver and the copper and the currencies and the XRP, you're going to increase your wealth as this whole thing collapses. And then you'll be able to invest in the stocks and in the real estate and in other parts of the world. So be blessed. I hope this has blessed you. And please don't just take this and run. You need to come back. You need to subscribe. You need to follow. I'm coming into the time that God promised. My message, he said, wouldn't be pertinent to people until we were on the brink of collapse. And then he said, the knowledge that I've given you over this 57 years will open people's eyes. And that's what we need right now. We need you to become part of the solution. And the only way you can do that, if you look at what America is, it's a republic, and a republic is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it has some really simple requirements. And if you don't buy this book, if you don't get informed, if you don't pay attention, you're not going to be able to comply with the requirements for being part of a republic. You have to be educated. You have to be able to read, in other words. You have to be moral, because you need to be able to make decisions that are free of self-vested interest. And you have to be able to be self-sufficient. You shouldn't be in a situation where you're having handouts from the government, because that means the government is controlling you, and you need to have knowledge. So that's why they had the pamphleteers back in the colonial days, and we're basically gutting the people who have enslaved us through their lies and through their propaganda machines. So what it takes some work on your part to ferret through and find out the truth, so that you can be part of the army that stands up and brings this nation back to its rightful position and keeps it there. So with that, be blessed. We'll see you next week.